Thanks, Heather. Amazing job for the first year of Space House, and honored to be a part of it. Thank you so much. Okay, I have to stand up. So a couple of things, a couple of quick announcements on my part. You guys get to hear this first, if anybody cares, right? As of Friday, I am now the chairman and CEO of SpaceFund, which I founded, then I left, and now I'm back. And I'm leading a $50 to $100 million raise to help fund what we call frontier enabling companies. Number two is New Worlds has moved to Houston this year. We're renting the George Brown Convention Center, and we're adding the word fair at the end of it. We're scaling. And we've teamed up with a great team out of LA, and it's going to be magnificent, along with the Space Cowboy Ball, which is a costume party that asks the question, what would you wear to a party on Mars in 100 years? Your wheels just started, I know they did. All right, so the way we're gonna start is, there's a lot of people talking about the moon. Moon, right? Everything, and I even did a book on the moon. Led a petition drive to get us to the moon, all of that, and I'm really thrilled about the moon. But the real action, I believe, and it's because I used to work with this gentleman, and by the way, this is required reading, it's called The High Frontier. It's basically the Bible of this entire cause. In fact, there was a guy in Florida and eventually started a book company, and this was one of the first books he ever sold. His name was Bezos. So this goes way back, get this book. But Dr. O'Neill talked about the idea that people on planetary surfaces are gonna be sort of stuck. Like if you're 2 or 3 generations in on the moon, you may not be able to come back to Earth. Same thing possibly for Mars. We don't have the science data yet, but it's a reasonably strong guess. However, if you're living in a rotating habitat, what we used to call O'Neill colonies, we call them habitats now, and it's rotating and giving you 1 G of gravity, probably you can come back and forth. Now, that's part of this equation. The other is the great work that's been done opening up what we call LEO, or low Earth orbit, for those who aren't into space yet. You're gonna be hooked by the time you leave today, I promise. And so low Earth orbit is just it starts right up there, right? And it goes out for, what's the top of low Earth orbit, Leo? Yeah, something like that. It goes out a little ways. But that's where the space station is. And that's where things are really gonna happen. Now, why am I up here talking? I have no freaking idea. Although at one point, a team I led, we took over the Russian space station Mir as the world's first commercial space station. I was lucky enough to sign up the first person to buy a ticket to go to space. He was originally gonna go to Mir. We got deorbited and we moved him over to ISS, the International Space Station. And so I've been kind of involved a little bit in this world. But the speakers that we have today are very much involved, and they're very, very high experts in this field. Our first speaker is gonna be Dennis Stone. Dennis spent 38 years with NASA and helped put together the COTS program. By the way, you cannot get involved in space unless you're into acronyms. I'm sorry, you know? You're gonna start calling like Thanksgiving like TD, Thanksgiving dinner, right? You're just gonna get into acronyms, everything, like, you know, NTB, not tonight, baby. I mean, you know, whatever, right? So you gotta learn them. But Dennis has been in the field for a long time, doing a lot of great work. He's operating as a consultant now. We're gonna come back and we'll start you in just a second. Then we have Cady Coleman, who's one of those people, you know, those astronauts, who's actually been to space, and I admire incredibly. She did 2 missions on Columbia as a flight specialist, and also 6 months on the International Space Station. So I'm looking forward to hearing both of these great, great presentations. So I'm gonna shut up now, and we're gonna come back, we're gonna have some interactions, some questions, and a lot of fun. We're gonna start with Dennis. Now, I've kind of given you the overview. You're gonna hear that word again, I'm sure. And then Dennis is kind of give you the field of play right now, what's happening in the space station development world, and LEO itself, the things that are going on in Earth orbit. And then Cady's gonna kind of give you a montage feeling of what happens when you're up there. So Dennis, without further ado, over to you, sir.
Great. Thank you, RT.
Thank you, DS.
Just trying to get you in the mood, you know. Even though I worked for NASA 38 years, I will try to minimize my use of acronyms. Anyway, next slide. I'm going to, as Rick said, kind of try to build a foundation for the panel today. And I want to go back to what Rick mentioned. 20 years ago, NASA started the COTS program. In fact, in the previous panel, there was a discussion. It's right there on the slide. If you read the fine print, it's the Commercial Orbital Transportation Services. It was kind of a pun because also COTS means commercial off the shelf. And the idea was to make commercial transportation off the shelf. In the last panel, they mentioned CLIPS. CLIPS was also using the COTS model. NASA has been pivoting from a model where it owns systems. The Apollo program was like this, Space Shuttle, Space Station, Artemis. NASA owns and operates those systems built by major contractors, if you will, to a model where NASA doesn't own anything, but it buys services, or some cases data, from a company which can sell those services or data to others, and therefore everyone shares the cost. And also you get the efficiencies of the commercial development. And so this started 20 years ago when the shuttle was 5 or 6 years away from ending. NASA said, you know, we need to see if the commercial sector can do this. The COTS program started with just $500 million. It ended up at $800 million. That may sound like a lot of money, but that's a drop in the bucket when it comes to developing big space systems. SpaceX won funding from us for Falcon 9 and Dragon development, as well as Orbital Sciences, now Northrop, for the Antares and the Cygnus. And SpaceX particularly, going back to that model of something that NASA can buy and others can as well, SpaceX marketed the Falcon 9, and the rest is history. In 10 years after Falcon 9 started flying, the price of getting to orbit per kilogram dropped by more than a factor of 10. The launch frequency went up, I think, by a factor of like 100. And so suddenly, and the world changed. We wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for SpaceX and Elon and the little help we gave him in the COTS program. So today, NASA's using this paradigm for commercial cargo to the space station, commercial crew to the space station, replacement of the tracking and data relay satellite system, the small lunar payloads you heard about on the last panel. And last but not least, what we want to focus on today is commercial LEO destinations, because now 20 years later, we're faced with ending another giant space system called the International Space Station. Next slide, please. ISS has been amazing. I spent much of my career on it. It's incredible what it's done. Helped us learn how to build technologies that work in low Earth orbit, helped us demonstrate how astronauts can live in low Earth orbit, and demonstrated the economic and scientific value of low Earth orbit in such areas as biotech, and I'll talk about that later. But it's been up, we mentioned it had a 25-year anniversary recently. It's been up for a long, long time. And just like the shuttle did its mission and had to be retired so new things could happen, exciting things could happen, it's that time. We're reaching that time with the International Space Station. As an incredible a machine it is, it's aging, and there are commercial replacements in the wings ready to come out and take over and take LEO to the next level. So let's talk about some of those companies. Next slide, please. So NASA has begun to support the replacements to the space station. And I'll just mention them briefly. VAST is a company out in Southern California that is putting together modules. I think I have a slide on Haven 1. It's first space station that's launching on its own next year. It'll be putting multiple modules together in its commercial LEO destination. I may say CLD, excuse me in advance. CLD bid. Blue Origin also has an amazing design called the Orbital Reef. Again, is modular, very capable. Starlab, a joint venture of Voyager Technologies and Airbus, is designed, it's bigger, you can see the diameter is large, it's designed to be launched on Starship later this decade. So it's taking full advantage of that, packing as much as they can into a single launch, which is a strength that they have in their design. You've heard of Axiom. Axiom has begun by assembling attached to the space station, and then they will depart and become a free flyer, and a modular approach as well. SpaceX has not publicly said they're going to bid on the commercial LEO destination program. They do have a public document with NASA, unfunded Space Act agreement, that says we'd like to explore taking our Starship that will land on the moon and retrofitting it to be a LEO space station that lands back on Earth, gets redesigned, re-equipped, maintained on Earth, and then launched again as a sortie space station. I don't know that that's going to happen, but it's certainly possible. And Sierra Space has been focused on inflatables, the Life module. You actually can see some of them in the Blue Origin design as well. They may bid on their own or may be part of the Blue Origin bid. So all of these are companies that are developing their space stations right now, that are waiting for NASA to start the next competition to replace the ISS. Next slide, please. And this is what I was mentioning earlier. Haven 1 is taking the first step next year, the very first commercial space station. It's minimal, just a single module launched on a Falcon 9 for a 3-year mission. It's launched without a crew, but then crews can come up on the SpaceX Crew Dragon, 4 missions, 4 crew each, 10-day stays, and they can do scientific experiments. There are mid-deck lockers as well on the Haven 1. This will also be proof that the commercial sector can actually do the job. This is being funded completely privately, so it's a very great demonstration that the commercial industry is up to the task of replacing the ISS. This is not a replacement ISS, obviously, but it's a modular approach that I think will be very important. Next slide, please. So there are markets. I mentioned selling to others. Okay, NASA's going to be a customer of these commercial space stations, but who else? Well, there'll be sovereign astronauts from countries around the world who want to fly to space for sure. But the other big thing is microgravity is a whole new window on life, not only for basic research and development, but applied R&D, particularly in drug development, drug discovery, development, and testing. Things grow more purely. For example, crystals, fiber optics, semiconductors, organoids, instead of being stuck in a petri dish, 2-dimensional, that can actually take on 3 dimensions, just like they are in real life, and be used for drug testing. They actually age faster in space. Why is that good? They can do accelerated drug testing. All kinds of interesting applications of microgravity, I think, will power this next generation of commercial LEO destinations. And the last other thing I wanted to mention, setting the stage for LEO, next slide please, is that there will also be other vehicles in low Earth orbit. There is a whole industry now of companies, 20 that I've tracked, that are building capsules that may be launched on a Falcon 9 or on smaller rockets and go in orbit and do some automated experiments and re-enter the Earth's atmosphere, bringing samples or products back to Earth. There are 20. Will the sky be filled with them anytime soon? Probably not. The demand's not there, but it's going to be an alternative to getting up to a crewed space station. And the rockets that are launching them, like our own here, Firefly, from here in Austin, there are 40 companies I'm tracking that are building small launch vehicles right now. Again, are they going to fill the skies anytime soon? Probably not. There will be a shakeout. But when you step back and look at the commercial stations and the capsules and the launchers, there's this huge and very diverse and exciting industry that is growing around the world today to service the low Earth orbit LEO economy. But the key is the space station, as much as it's done, it's an amazing vehicle, it's going to have to end. Just like the end of shuttle caused SpaceX to happen and the revolution in space access. The end of ISS may cause another economic revolution. I can't prove it will, but I can prove it won't if the ISS doesn't end. That's all. Next slide. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Dennis. Cady, take us out.
Okay, where's Tyler? There's Tyler. Can you see me, Tyler? Okay, because I have a different kind of show. I think from what Ben just said, I think what you should take from that is that you can't stop people from building space stations. So even though this one that's pictured will be going away whenever everybody gets everything straightened out and figures out a way to do that, and it's the right time, having lived there for 159 days, I'm like, oh, keep it, keep it, keep it, but sometimes it's not the practical thing. So next. I wanted you to see what we have today. I'm starting actually like, it's not really today, but because these are my slides, but this is the space station in orbit around the Earth, 250 miles up, typically 400 kilometers or so. Next. It shows us home, wherever home is. For me, that's Massachusetts, different in different lights. Always, I mean, I was up there 159 days. We go around the Earth 16 times a day. It takes an hour and a half, and the Earth is turning below us, and it never, ever, ever gets old because this is our home. And next, and what I found in looking out this window here is that I thought I would be going to space and it's a different place, but really, oops, okay. But really, Earth and home is bigger than we thought. And home includes low Earth orbit, and that is really exciting to me. Here's a bunch of different pictures of different people up on the space station. I like it that we have different faces. We do have better feet than that. Those are Scott Kelly's, Naoko Yamazaki, Sam from Italy, Jessica Watkins. I mean, so many people up on the space station. And we used to have alarms and sirens that go off when we had new people up there, but now it happens all the time. And so many people bring their own point of view to living up there. But that didn't just happen. And we learned about how to do this by learning things on space shuttle missions, some of which Ben was mentioning. I'm actually in that space shuttle. This is my first mission, STS-73. It looks like the cupola on that patch and the patch on my jacket. And that's because we were the precursor, or the sort of looking ahead. How can we learn how to do experiments on a space shuttle so that we build the right space station? And you can just cycle through them here, but when you see things floating around, I mean, we learn without the big force of gravity, how can we measure things that we never could measure before? We can learn everything about how liquids behave, how combustion happens. Because we take away gravity, it behaves differently. Different kinds of things that can be measured. For combustion, for example, you can measure something in less than a second down here on the ground. You have to, and up there we'll make that same measurement over 30 or 40 seconds. Okay, growing plants, growing food, necessary for Earth, necessary for Mars, studying human health. And the other thing, but that's some of the things that we can do on that space station or these new space stations, and commercial, can be university research. It's so exciting to me as a scientist. I'm a polymer chemist, and seeing these things that cannot be figured out and learned about on the ground can be done in space, and even manufacturing in space. I think the next thing on the plate is artificial retinas. But on my second mission, what we learned was actually some of the hard lessons to learn, which was how do we learn from failure? This is, I'm not saying that Eileen here is the failure. She's the commander of the space shuttle for STS-93 next. And our job was to deploy the Chandra X-ray Observatory. And our launch is known as the most dangerous launch in the history of the shuttle that did not end in an accident. And you'll see this, and you might hear it too. The 3 engines are lighting. We've left the pad. PAO said something profound. X-ray astronomy. And what you didn't hear is, go to the next one, Tyler, is that Eileen isn't talking about the engines here. But actually, if you look closely, we had a leak in one of our engines. So neither we nor Mission Control knew about that. What Eileen was calling out was, Houston, Columbia is in the roll. We knew she'd say that. And then she said, and we have a fuel cell pH #1. It means an electrical short. My first thought was, we just did that in the simulator last week. We know how to do that. And that's a really reassuring thought. Now, next. The big news is that from our mission, we learned how to survive something like that on the way uphill through the way we had built the electronics and all those things. Mission Control, it's really interesting to go to the audio from that mission. But what we got was an X-ray telescope in orbit, supposed to work for 5 years, still working 26 years later. On the left is a supernova as we were able to see it before Chandra. On the right, the blue is Chandra data. The other colors are data from other telescopes. So we've really come a long way. Next. In understanding so many things. This is the first image of a black hole not taken by Chandra, but actually coordinated. Chandra told the other telescopes where and when to look. Next. And so we learned, it turned out to be wire chafing, grounded the space shuttle fleet for a few months, did all these inspections. And those kinds of lessons are completely necessary to be doing the things that Ben was talking about, going on into the future. And for me, going up on the space station, this is our crew, myself, Dmitry from Russia, Paolo from Italy. And I think you can look at this picture and you can see that they do not assign crews based on personal compatibility. Okay? We have one person that talks a lot, that would be me, one in the middle who does not talk, now very much, but is one of the smartest pilots you will ever meet, and Paolo Nespoli, who glues all of us together. Next. So when we get up there, there's 3 people, that makes us 6. This is about a 1.5-minute little film here that shows us actually getting ready for launch and going, see, I'm standing on a little spot, reporting in. I actually had to run to that spot, by the way. And then we're loaded into this kind of smaller rocket, but it is still incredibly profound when that thing takes off. And you might wonder, like, after surviving STS-93, why would anyone ever go back? I mean, I've flown twice, but it is the mission of exploration that so many of us in this room share. This is my favorite part, where this is what it's like to live up there. I mean, you fly everywhere. And doing science, that thing I'm holding there weighs 200 pounds. Fluids experiments, when you want to stop and say hi to people or we're actually watching the next crew launch, you tuck your feet in. We're all humans. We bring things with us that make us feel in our very own way human. Beautiful pictures out the window. Amazing shots of the space station. Looking out the window, this is what it looks like to look out and see the place that we come from. This is the Southern Lights, Aurora Australis. Then you'll see a bunch of lightning on the Earth coming up. And if you see little bright lights, those are all city lights. Lightning is the sparkles. And that green line, that is the fragile part of our Earth, because that is the atmosphere. That is what is protecting us from space. Next. And to piggyback on Ben's, I'm looking here. Okay, we're doing okay. Picking on Ben's, we were the second crew ever to capture a free-flying thing from space and bring it onto the space station. And we had to practice that a lot in the future in order to start having capsules from SpaceX. I mean, they start with supply ships, which is what these are, and then go on. After supply ships are set and understood, then it's people. Next. And this is over the Finger Lakes, New York, Cape Cod. Next. So how do we go from a crew that was like all nicely posed for their picture like that and become this crew who were not picked to be compatible, and none of them are, and none of your teams are either. And that's why I say these things quickly, which is that in this picture, most important thing is that not even the identical twins, Scott and Mark Kelly in this picture, are the same to work with, the same to understand anything. Everyone in this picture, even if they share a lot of similarities, has a different point of view. Next. So some people are easy, and you can cycle through these, Tyler. Some people are easy to know. Scott, I mean, he's the robot is the one on the left, just saying. But hey, this guy, this is Scott too. He just found a slingshot. Next. And Nicole Stott, we have kids the same age. We kind of look at each other. We have a conversation. Same with these four. I'm sure for all you guys, it's the same at work. You have this kind of bond with all the women there. Anyways, and so I wrote a book about some of these things, but it's in this slide because in order to be that team, you have to learn to connect to each other. And if it's hard to do, you have to start sharing things you don't even really feel like sharing, but it's part of the mission to do so. Next is to show them who you are. I brought instruments to flight, place, to space. I'm not the most amazing flute player. I love to play, and I was the only one there, and that means you have to accomplish the mission. Next, it's us playing music on board, and I'll show you just a few seconds of this, which is a duet. If any of you are Jethro Tull fans out there, I brought Jethro Tull, Ian Anderson's Flute to Space, and on the April 12th, 2011, 50th anniversary of the first human that left the planet, Yuri Gagarin. He's in Russia playing a concert, and I am on the space station. Next. So, sharing your story, helping to find a way to tell the space story. Next. Fortunately, I am married to a glass artist who focused on space a dozen years before I met him. Next. Got very expensive, but he sees planets that none of us see. Next. And just realizing that there's some perspective there that all of us need to understand, that we are a small place in a very big universe. Next. And in the end, with our crew, who were so very different from each other, but the mission is what brought us together. But the thing that really cemented that was family. And I don't mean husband, wife times kid, but every person that goes to space leaves someone behind that they care about. And that was the secret sauce to being a crew. Next. And I mean, I cried when my husband sent me this photo. Next. And you can parent from space. This is the slide that says, I heard you've been rude to your grandma. Next. My whole family. Next. And thank you very, very much. You can see we became a crew. Next. And next. Say goodbye to this space station because the new ones are coming. And thank you, Tyler. That was not easy.
Yes.
And let's just say thanks to all the folks in the Space House, because this is not an easy thing to bring all of us together, and they have done it.
Hey. All right, so what we're going to do is, Dennis, I'm going to throw it over to you for a second. And then Cady has really touched on the human side, the spiritual side, something I talk about in my book. But first, we have to make this happen. It has to be economic. It has to be useful. It has to be important. It has to be strategic in some cases. What do you see when you look at these 5, 6, not including the Chinese, but these space stations? What do you see as the biggest, best first market?
Well, the first market will be the current government agencies that are using the space station today: NASA, ESA, JAXA, Canada. NASA will pivot from the supplier to a customer, just like it has on all the other commercial pivots that it's made before. So that'll be, if you will, the anchor tenant of the commercial space stations, continuing the science work and the microgravity research, the astronaut visits, and getting used to being in space before they go off to the moon and Mars, right? This better start in our backyard. So I think LEO will always be valuable to our government agencies. And I mentioned the sovereign governments who aren't currently on the ISS. They're going to want to send astronauts to the commercial stations too. And then the next one, of course, will be microgravity and other innovative things maybe you can't do on the ISS today.
Well,
Cady,
I just want to interject that low Earth orbit is one of this is all getting ready to go to the moon and Mars, but where are the best places to practice? And best place number one, if you can do it, if you can learn what you need to learn, is Earth. I mean, wherever is easy and cheap and safe, that's what you want to do. But there's a lot of things we can't figure out until we go actually to space and have at least, close to zero gravity. And it's 8.5 minutes. I didn't show you the whole launch, but it's 8.5 minutes on the shuttle to get to space. It's about 9 on SpaceX, right? And that's not very long. A lot longer to parallel park, of course, right? Seriously. But it's a close place to figure out that you need something to be different and do it again and come back home. And the moon is then 3 days away. I mean, I want to figure things out before we go to Mars, because once you start going that way, you need to have brought everything you need, and we have been wrong again and again and again, and that is just plain old human, not because people weren't good enough, smart enough, did a bad job, any of those things. It's because space is hard.
Okay, Cady, you nailed it. Space is hard. What was the toughest thing you had to deal with when you were in the station? Like, as a human being floating around a space station, what was your number one pain in the ass?
It's going to be disappointing to, everyone, I think, but who you are on Earth, it turns out that same human being goes to space. And for me, that would be time management. You know? I mean, it's a good thing I didn't have wallets up there. Actually, losing things, I'm a person that loses things, and when things float away, it is so hard. I actually found someone's pocket knife. It was their grandmother's pocket knife they brought up there, and it had been lost for a year and a half, and suddenly it was just right there, not open. And so losing things, but so that environment where you fly everywhere and it's like living the life of Peter Pan, and we get better at it, and it's fascinating and interesting. That never ever gets old, but it sure does lead to losing things. And if that's your experiment and the one adapter cord that goes between X and Y is lost, I mean, everything is lost, and you have to think about those kinds of things.
Wow, interesting.
Nothing sucked, really, except the food was not great.
The food was not good.
Food is so important.
I heard that your taste buds shift or change when you're out there. You need extra spice. Is that correct?
Some people it's like that. Didn't seem to happen on our crew. I think our Italian was fairly despondent about the food, right?
Yeah.
He'd be like, "What, lasagna, Bob?" And and then I had not been to Italy before the mission, and then I went, and then I understood exactly what he was feeling. So these differences of a little bit in taste were just not an issue for our semi-Italian crew.
Yeah, I'm a bachelor, so as long as it's not moving, I will probably eat it and probably be fine. So, Dennis, we've talked about the government support that's happening. The way I'm seeing this is there's going to be a moment where we have lots of capacity. Let's say in the next 3 years, we could potentially have 4 or 5 free world space stations and 1 Chinese space station. At that point, we're going to have more capacity potentially than we are industrial, because you need to get out there, do some experiments, figure out what you're doing, and go, oh, this is where we should invest money to create new products, right? So there's that valley of death almost that's going to happen. When it comes to commercial products, not just customers, we got the government, okay, they're going to help. What do you think are going to be the first commercial products?
Well, first of all, I'd like there to be 3 or 4 space stations, but I don't think there will. Mm-hmm. NASA said they're going to pick 1 or 2, and
some of us are fighting that. But
the current budget barely supports 1, to be frank. And that station will get bigger over time if it's one of the modular ones, and hopefully they can afford 2. And that capacity will be, again, focused on the government's needs because they'll be paying those initial bills. But as I tried to show in that slide earlier, research and development are the products. Manufacturing, we talk about, it's sort of the holy grail. We hope someday there'll be manufacturing. For manufacturing to work in space, you have to technically work, and then it has to work from a business standpoint. And prove me wrong, but I don't think there's been any application to jump those 2 hurdles yet. Hopefully they will in the CLD era, if I can coin a phrase. But R&D, we've been doing since the days of shuttle on through station is big and growing bigger as microgravity becomes more accessible to industry. I mentioned the purity of products, the drug discovery and testing, and there'll be other innovative uses. I think that's going to be very big. And someday manufacturing.
Great. If we end up with 1 replacement space station, that'll be a disaster. But some of us are working on that one.
I agree.
So, yeah.
We've had one for a while. It's worked out. Okay, and actually the Chinese have one right now as well.
So 2. Government space stations, 2 of them. What do you think would be the first product that you might consider, that's not a government research program? It's either somebody buying a service or activity or something like that. Just what do you think it might be?
For low Earth orbit?
Yeah, Leo.
Because I think the moon, we're talking storage, data storage, things like that for the moon. I think it's going to be biological. All of you that are bio people, first of all, just think if it's something useful, if it's a problem here on Earth you're trying to solve and it's biological, I would try to get things up to space to do those experiments, because everything seems to happen differently biologically. When that really came home to me, suddenly I realized that the logical question number 2 would be, well, then why didn't I grow like another head or something really strange happen? But I'm a system, is the answer that I get, and I believe it, is that, your body adapts, it figures out, different things to do. But in general, taking skin cells up to space, you're going to see in just a couple of days, you're going to see differences in how they are acting. Down here, they spend a lot of time and money to understand skin, not for a beauty reason, but because it is a barrier to disease for all of us. It's a health thing. Same thing with the biofilms in your mouth. And so by understanding when they go up there, they see the kinds of things that are like, oh, is it this part? Is this part? What is it that causes skin to age or interfaces in your mouth to degrade? And it turns out that the things that happen in a tiny little blip down here are big spikes of activity that are really easy to see. So biological things, I think, quite interesting. I'm hearing that manufacturing artificial retinas is on the step at this point, because it is something that's very small and tiny and probably per pound, But we're all looking, but these discouraging kinds of things like, oh, well, how many space stations will we have? They should not stop your ideas. And they should not stop you from thinking, how can I be part of this? Because exploration is going to happen, and it is ideas that are out there in your mind, and finding the team, making the team, even when it's people you don't like but you need, you have to team with them, right? Those are going to be the things that really bring us to the future.
Yeah, I think on the biology side, one of the fascinating ones that caught my attention was somebody was talking about growing lungs in space. And the idea of, because when your lungs actually grow in your body, they're supported by the framework of your entire body. So when they try to do that using stem cells, for example, on the Earth, they have to support them. So I visualize this rack of lungs, with like name tags on them, where people have sent their stem cells up, and they're floating in space, they're growing new lungs, and then they're shipping them back down to the Earth. So there's one point that I want to add to that, if you don't mind, real quick. Going back to your point, when politically appropriate, whatever you want to call it, inappropriate, when the pilgrims, let's say, were cruising up and down the coast, looking at this place called North America, they're like, wow, they got a bunch of tall trees, we can use those, and things like that. Until they actually landed and got engaged and had a generation or two of people living here, the actual wealth and creativity and things that occurred in this new world were unknown. So once we get people out there, then they're going to be discovering and developing new stuff. That's kind of what I mean about that period where we got to get people out there, people like y'all, creative people like at South by Southwest, out into space. Then the ideas will start coming to them. Go ahead, Cady.
I learned something just a couple of weeks ago. I was visited by a plant scientist where I did some of their experiments. And there's the microgravity missions where it's not orbital, so you're going up. You have a few minutes of microgravity coming back. Okay, every person who's done that and every experiment that has done that, they have gone over 50 miles. And that means that at least the people, not the plants, are astronauts. And we have some of them here in the Space House today. And I really love the fact that there are different astronaut kinds of experiences. I've had one, they have others. They are a marvelous set of people. But getting back to, is it so important to do these experiments? I asked this plant scientist, I said, you're telling me in 3 or 4 minutes of microgravity, you can learn something about a plant growing? And she said, oh, yes, Cady, in seconds. We are seeing, now I'm going to use words I don't really know. We are seeing genes upregulated, downregulated. We can see differences in seconds. That was amazing to me. And it tells you that It's all worthwhile. And when I go, well, hey, don't be discouraged by what Ben says, but other people in this audience are listening who are finance people, who are investment people, and they are needing to understand, well, hey, this is not, we have to really think about this business case. So I'm not trying to trash, you know.
So I'll trash it. No, I won't.
No, I'll trash it.
We've known each other a little while. There was a period, actually, during the space shuttle era where space was going to be commercialized. You might have seen that picture of the for sale sign, right, at one point back in the day. And a lot of the biological companies, drug companies, and others got involved. It didn't work out. They got burned, basically. They felt there were just so many issues, like time from when you announce your project all the way until it actually flies, things like that. How do we get them back? And we're running out of time, right? So,
Big for sale sign? No. Yeah, the frequency of the cycle time, if you will, to do experiments, get the results back,
Much
whether it's
better.
on these cargo capsules or from a CLD, I think has got to be shortened, and it will be. Again, the price points I'm a little concerned about because right now you can fly for free. It's subsidized, going up, services and coming down. CLDs will charge, but there's going to be some ways to soften that. So I'm very optimistic, though. But the CLDs will also allow more use than the ISS allows, NASA allows, because some things are just not permitted. So I think all these will balance out, and we'll see a trend cycle like this.
good. A positive note. Last statement, please.
Well, I think they've already gotten better. That doesn't mean they don't have to get a lot better. And that NASA actually made the Center for the Advancement of Science in Space, where they owned half the up mass, half the down mass. And they could do audacious things that are hard for the government, at least back then. I'm encouraged in general about space. I think you can tell that. And something that was really profound to me when I went back to the Johnson Space Center for a few days was to realize that even though we see the Artemis launch coming up, and then maybe they have to go back and do it better, or fix something, we see these little glimpses. But when even in their press conference, like the Crew 12, you can tell. I mean, oh, so and so is doing this lunar mission, and so and so is doing this, and NASA is going to the moon when things are right and things are ready. This is a group of people and their contractors and their partners and commercial partners, and it is just the way they think, it's the way they live, it's the way they eat and breathe, is that exploration will go on, and we are doing it. And that was really interesting to me, because I'd actually kind of fallen into a group where I kind of see it coming and going and wondering if we're going to go, and it was really encouraging to me.
So look, every one of you is a Cady Coleman. Every one of you has the right stuff. Access is about to happen. We're moving from the era of rockets to what I call rocket ships. Why do I call them that? Because you do not throw ships away. You will have access to space. Now, we hear about bubbles. AI is a bubble. Maybe space is a bubble. You know what? Space is a bubble. There's a bubble around the Earth that is about to burst wide open. And the seeds of life and humanity are going to go out into the universe forever and anon. You can be a part of that. Get involved, get out there, and make it happen. Thank you to my two guests. Thank you.
And Rick, we have to tell them that we're going to sell books afterwards.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And then we're going to sell some books.
So Rick's got a really marvelous book. I'm going to show him your book. It says, Why Space? The Purpose of People. So we look different, but we think about a lot of the same things. And mine is Sharing Space. You can find them anywhere you buy books, but here we'll be signing them too. Thanks.